Hello, test, test. So I have a confession to make. I'm a marketer. And I heard some groans, I'm sorry. But you know, a little more about me so you can maybe like me a little bit better as a marketer is I have built a lot of products in my marketing career. First of all, there is my own personal brand, which I think is a product in itself. Now tarahunt.com, it was originally Horse Pig Cow. Some of you might have read that blog years ago. I also was one of the founders of the co-working movement and built Citizen Space. If any of you have actually co-worked, has anybody co-worked out of Citizen Space in San Francisco? No. Have you ever co-worked out of a co-working space? Worked out of a co-working space, yeah. So I was part of the early product team, I guess, on that. It was more of a community movement. And Citizen Space, I sold that to some new lovely people a couple of years back. I also built this startup, Biosphere. We were a victim of what Andy talks about is the short runway. I made the classic mistake of cheaping out on the designer early on, and then when we realized we were running out of money and time, I finally hired a firm that did an amazing job. The current site is something I'm proud of, but we had to leave the company before it was even launched, but I still wanted to launch it. I'm very proud of it, and I know it works because it's filled with spam. And then the product that I'm building right now is Lime Foundry. I'm looking to productize it a little bit more. It's all around content marketing. And then, of course, I mean, a book itself is a product. And as Martin had mentioned, I did write a book a bunch of years ago. So now that you know from all today's wonderful speakers, what goes into building a great, wonderful product that people love. I want to say that your awesome product won't sell itself. It's not about you build it and they will come. It's a lot more complicated than that. It's a lot more complex to it. There's a lot more to it. In fact, it's never one thing. There's so much that goes into whether a product is a success or not. I've known dozens of amazing products. I've even known that have never gone anywhere. I've also known dozens of mediocre products that have blown up because of various different reasons. So, you know, usually we think about this, and it's less of a Venn diagram than some of the overview factors that go into, of course, the product, the design, the UX, that sort of thing. Marketing does play a huge role, and then there's external factors. And I won't make you, but I think all of these are actually one and the same thing to go towards a product and a product success. So I'm not going to go through all of these. I mean, this is really simplified. A product includes a whole bunch of different factors. This will be online right away afterwards. And then marketing, which I don't distinguish from product, is, you know, a whole bunch of other factors, including inbound, which is a lot to do with the design of the interactions. You've heard of growth hacking, that sort of thing. Those are all marketing functions. But then outbound is how we usually think of marketing. We think of it as the push, push, push. We're annoyed by it, but there's some of that works as well. And then, of course, there's external factors, those that are out of your control and those that are in your control. So there's a lot of things, world events. I've had friends that have launched startups right when a world crisis was happening. During the economic meltdown in the US, there were a lot of startups that couldn't get all their first round funding fell through because of what was going on, ran out of money, and they had some really great ideas. So, as well, in the Venn diagram idea of things, where you overlap, if you just have a great product and external factors are in your favor, you could have a niche success, right? You could really hit it big in one area. If you have great marketing, bad product, and external factors line up, that's not necessarily sustainable. And then good product with great marketing, but the external factors aren't working out for you, That's really bad luck. That's the case with some of my friends in the Valley who launched stuff back when. But D is what you want. You want all three of these things to come together: product, marketing, and external factors. Those that you can't control, of course, you can't control, but let's try to see what we can control. So the goal ultimately, and everybody's job, if you're a startup founder or a product manager, is to find that product market fit. I can't see everybody way back then, but in the front couple of rows, I can still see some faces that are a little skeptical still. I mean, I spoke at Jeffrey Zeldman's event Apart a couple years back, a design audience. And as soon as I said I was a marketer and I made a joke about it, instantly people shut off to me. But I want to tell you a few stats to help you realize what kind of competition that you're up against and why you should open your mind to marketing being a big part of your success. So, anybody know the number of new businesses started in the UK in 2012? Some rough guesses? 100,000? 400,000? Well, you're just about right. 484,224 new businesses started in the UK alone in 2012. That's 1 year, new businesses. There's services in there, of course, and retail spaces, that sort of thing. But these are new businesses. They're all products. They're all trying to get people's attention and become successful. And the stats are that 1 in every 3 businesses fail within the first 3 years in the UK. There's probably a lot of great businesses in there that for whatever reason, in whatever one of those factors that I showed earlier, they didn't go forward. They didn't see the kind of success that they dreamed of. And nobody goes into business to fail within 3 years. And worldwide, 400 million individuals around the globe are engaged in entrepreneurship. That's a lot of competition. It's incredible. So, you might be thinking, oh, well, of course, I'm different, right? And of course you're different, right? Of course you're different. You're going to be the one that breaks through all of that noise and has the next big thing. So, now about that product market fit. I want to show you a few case studies of some really interesting businesses that started out to be the great products that weren't getting any traction, and what happened when they applied a little bit of marketing. So the first case study, does anybody know HelloFlow here? Hands for HelloFlow? Okay, oh, excellent, great. So what HelloFlow is it's a subscription model for women and girls, and it's like Dollar Shave Club, except for tampons and pads, right? So you can subscribe to it, and every month they know your cycle. They can send you your products that you need. You don't have to go down to the grocery store anymore or the drugstore anymore and buy your tampons, that sort of thing. And they went around and they started to pitch investors. And investors were saying things like, because they don't really understand the market. This is from another pad commercial. They multi-use, believe me. Subscription services are a fad. The market isn't big enough. We don't invest in high costs with low margins. Women don't really need this service. It's the big deal. Until they spent $6,000 on a video. Now, they spent the $6,000 was they were lucky because they knew some really good ad writers and some people that were connected in the marketing field. They were able to get this camp, and they conceived this idea over takeout with a few friends. Has anybody seen this video? A couple, but not all of you. So I'm glad that I decided to embed this last minute. So.
It was the beginning of summer, and no one knew me at camp. I was just a big random loser. Then, things changed. I got my period. The red badge of courage. I was the first one to get it. So I was like the expert. I became the camp gyno.
I'm a queen bee, come get it. No tripping. I got everything you need. I'm a queen.
It's a serious responsibility. From now on, you get these from me. I'm like a counselor now. Listen up, ladies. Menstruation demonstration. For these keepers, I was their Joan of Arc. Your sword, your shield. It's like I'm Joan and their vag is the arc. Suck it up and deal with it. I guess the power got to my head a little bit. This is your life now. Popularity can do that. I know it's that time of month for you because I know your cycle. But as quickly as it began, it was over. Girls stopped coming to their appointments. Then, I found out why. The whole camp started getting friggin' care packages in the mail with tampons and panty liners and candy, all perfectly timed to their cycle. It's like Santa for your vagina. How could a camp gyno compete with that?
So within 24 hours of putting that video on YouTube, they had something like 1.5 million views. Starting this, and I'll give you the stats in a second, starting this, before they started this video, they had like 40 subscriptions, or they haven't given their numbers, but they had a very small number of subscriptions. In fact, the founder, Nama, was ready to throw in the towel. She was like, this is not going to work. The investors are right. Yes, sorry. The investors were right. Women maybe don't need this. It's not getting traction. It's not helping. And it was actually sitting down with her marketing friends, and they said, they looked at the Dollar Shave Club model, and they were like, you know what? They were experiencing the same thing that people were like, oh, this is a cool idea, but they weren't actually subscribing. And they put out the video, and then next thing you knew, Dollar Shave Club was getting funded. They had lots of subscribers. And so Nama Bloom was quoted then saying that she didn't give numbers in this quote, but she was basically said that what she used to have as far as subscriptions, what she had as far as subscriptions over the entire time that it existed before then, she was getting in an hour after this video. So I'm guessing she had about probably between 40 to 100 subscriptions in total, and then she was getting that in an hour because of this video. It completely changed everything. She's now, she doubled her company to 2 people. I think they're looking to hire more. She had to run down to Costco to buy a whole bunch of tampons and stuff so that she could actually start to fulfill orders. That's what the power of marketing is. So, products, she had basically a smart idea in the first place. I personally love it. It's right up there with Dollar Shave Club. It's convenient. And then she added marketing to the mix. Really, as you saw, a really smart, funny video. And then external factors, great timing. Could that video have flown 5 years ago when YouTube was in its fledgling days? Could that, she couldn't, of course, buy ad space on television. You couldn't do that for $6,000. So the factors were there, plus viral videos are a thing now, that sort of thing. And Dollar Shave Club kind of set the precedent for her. So she had all this stuff together, and now she has a successful, growing business. Now the next one I show you, you guys are all going to be familiar with, and it is old, but it's an oldie but goodie that I totally love. So, and a lot of people don't know the story behind this particular success. So, will it blend, right? The kitchen appliance. So what we have. Well, what they have here is a series of YouTube videos that have multi-million views on it. The iPad was their most successful one. You guys have probably all seen it. You probably all cringed because it came out the day after the iPad came out, and you watched them take this coveted object and run it through the blender. If you haven't seen it, you have to go and check out Will It Blend on YouTube. And it's 100% earned. They didn't spend a penny on advertising. And you know, these, and I don't know, who's actually gone and checked out the BlendTech blenders? Yeah, so they're not cheap. They're like $400 to $1,200 blenders. They're they're like the Rolls Royce, I guess, of blenders, or the Lamborghini of blenders, whatever car is really hot of blenders. But they were having a tough time selling their blenders. In fact, this is a really small picture, but Vitamix was the big hot blender before they started Will It Blend, and everybody wanted a Vitamix, and people were spending the money on Vitamix, and they had much better marketing, even though BlendTech was a better product. When their first video launched in 2006 on a $50 budget, this was the founder of the company who used to actually sit in the back product testing area and like test the blenders by like putting crazy shit in the blenders. And this is where the idea for these videos came out, because people, the product designers and the whole company loved to gather around and watch him like, oh, blend marbles now. Oh, blend a hockey stick. You know, that sort of thing. They used to love to actually watch him. So it was natural that this came out of this. And the $50 budget included the lab coat that he wears in the videos, marbles, McDonald's meal, garden rake, and of course you need safety glasses. Don't try this at home. Online sales grew by 700% from these videos. And then 15% of those who view these videos have actually made a purchase. And I would imagine that if you ask anybody that made a purchase, they weren't really necessarily in the market for a $400 blender, right? So, of course, this is a huge success. They've also made a lot of money from ad revenue. So instead of placing ads, they make money from ads. And there's people that are making six figures, like Jenna Marbles on YouTube from their ad revenue alone. And then, of course, the SEO benefits from it. So what you have here is a really solid product. Before they had marketing, nobody really knew about them. Nobody wanted to buy this blender. But you throw into the mix great videos, and then being early on YouTube. They're an early example. They're risk takers, and then taking advantage of current event items like, oh, the iPad's out. People are going to totally share this. They were able to make this huge, huge success. Now this one is less of a product, although she's turned it into a product, which I think is interesting. Do people follow I Fucking Love Science on Facebook? Yeah. If you don't, you really should. She's a really great curator of really great scientific content. And her name is Elise Andrews. She's British but lives in Canada. And she was just a grad student who was bored one day. And so she's a 23-year-old student. It was boredom project, started like just over a year ago. And it wasn't intended as anything but she just wanted a place to share what she loved. And she named the page without thinking about it, I fucking love science, because she does fucking love science, right? And within 24 hours, she got like 1,000 page likes. And she was like, okay, well, some of those are my friends, and my friends telling friends, so that's interesting. But then when she hit 100,000 fans, she was like, I should really pay more attention to this. I should actually really try to productize this on some level. And what I love about this particular story is that she's taken something that was previously thought of as, a very serious subject, And science and geeking out to science used to be like just in the realm of scientists. She made it fun. I mean, just the title of it, I fucking love science. She has a PG page that you can share with your kids called Science is Awesome, but it doesn't have nearly the same amount of followers, like a tiny fraction of the followers. And so she started as a hobby, but now she's working with Discovery Channel. She's got a line, she's coming out with like a line of products, merchandise around it. She's engaged as a public speaker around the world. She got a really crazy job with a science marketing organization. And she's really starting to turn this into a product. She's gonna launch a website and a whole big sort of movement around it, and Discovery Channel is helping her with a bunch of stuff. So this is a pretty cool story. And if you haven't seen, I think, well, she was, I might be off now, but she was at 6.9 million followers on her Facebook page. That's quite a feat for just over a year and a half. And just to give you perspective, fucking NASA has like a quarter of the followers that she has. So interesting, great, you know, a really cool engagement with a topic. It's really well curated. Great branding, I think in this case, using Facebook, calling it I fucking love science is a stroke of genius, even if it was accidental. And then science is a hot topic now, has gotten her what she needs. So the next question is, you know, you look at those and you think, okay, well, that's all good. But what is it that draws attention to a product? What are those elements that really went into the Hello Flow video? What is the elements that go into the Will It Blend? Or what was Elise Andrews really tapping into when she started I Fucking Love Science? And I used to come up with sort of my own framework until I read this book. Who here's read Contagious by Jonah Berger? Okay, so a few of you. I fucking love this book. So I highly recommend it, but I'm going to kind of give you the Coles notes. Sorry, Jonah, if you watch this. I am encouraging people to buy it as well. So he talks about, he has this 6 keys to what people remember and talk about, what makes something more contagious, and the acronym for it is STEPS, which is fairly easy to remember. The first one is social currency. How does it make people look to talk about you? Can they feel like insiders? Can they feel cooler by spreading the word about your product? The second one is triggers. You know, what are those common everyday things that we see, that we do, memes, things that tie us together as people that you can actually tie back to your product? Emotion. How does your content, how does your product stimulate different areas of emotion? Public. Can you make your product more public, even if it's a private action or a private interaction that somebody has with your product? Practical value. How can we show how your product drastically improves people's lives? And then stories. What broader narrative can we wrap your product, wrap around your product? So the first one, social currency, breaks out into like 3 main areas. Inner remarkability, what makes something remarkable? Game mechanics, how you ignite friendly competition. We all know a lot more about game mechanics now. And then making people feel like insiders. So this first story, actually, I changed out yesterday after I arrived here in London, and I was picked up by an amazing chauffeur. Now, I don't very often take chauffeurs, but when I do take them, they have to be fabulous. In this case, I was coming off the plane, I was feeling tired, I just wanted to get back to the hotel and get myself cleaned up. But he was so remarkable that I really have to tell this story. So in a world of commoditization, because there's plenty of ways to get from point A to point B. There's Uber cab, there's taxis, there's buses, there's walking. There's all these different ways to get from point A point B. Darren, who's behind this company, is remarkable. And it's his attention to detail, right? So I got into the car, he's like, by the way, there's Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi in a car. Candy, we all know the benefits of candy from the Hello Flow video, right? Candy. Preloaded iPads in the back of the seat so I can search the web, I can read the latest in tech news. There's a whole bunch of stuff preloaded on there. And then PowerPoints for me to plug in anything, and it's compatible with almost every, he's like Android, the iPhone, iPad, iPhone version if you have the new one, if you have the old one. So everything was there for me. It was like having my little office on wheels. And so I was so tickled by this experience and how amazing he was. I interviewed him, and I'm going to show you a quick video.
Well, the idea is that we want to exceed all our customers' expectations. People have a certain expectation of the level of service they're going to receive from the chauffeur service. We want to go over and above that and give them the best experience they've ever had. So we try and put ourselves in the customer's shoes and think, okay, you just come off a long flight, you've been using a laptop working away, chances are the battery's died on you, likewise with your mobile phone. So we've got PowerPoint in the car so you can charge up your laptops and your mobiles. We've got Wi-Fi in the car as well, so you can carry it working while you're in the car and avoid your iPad charges. And there's an iPad which has got various international newspapers, magazines, so you can put Spotify linked to the car as well if you want music.
Spotify.
Reclining seats. Just do everything to make the customer as comfortable as possible, because then if we're driving them on behalf of a client of ours, we want the client to, for the clients to have their guest arrive saying, I really enjoyed the ride, thank you, you've looked after me, you obviously care about me, that you've gone to the extent of using someone so professional. I think that's what it's about. And chauffeuring is very much it's a service industry, that's the whole thing. I saw an interesting piece in the New York Times recently. He was saying that chauffeuring was becoming a sort of a dying profession because people just don't appreciate, other chauffeurs don't perhaps appreciate the fact that this is a service, and you can get a mini cab if you just want to get from A to B, but if somebody's using a chauffeur, it's because they expect a lot more than just a means of transport.
So if you guys need a chauffeur for anything, I swear, he was amazing. And thank you, Martin, for sending him to pick me up, because that just made arriving in London that much sweeter, for sure. He is in a commoditized business. He's running something that you wouldn't necessarily think of applying those principles to, and because he does, he created an experience for me that drove me to want to include him in this presentation, switch up my presentation last minute. I tried to get him to come down here, but he was so busy with driving people around that he couldn't make it. But I hope you guys can meet him at some point in the near future. Game mechanics, won't go deep into this. You guys know, ways to expose, because people, they like to think, they like to measure themselves in relation to how they're the milestones against what other people are doing, as well as how they're doing in life. In the know, fab.com is already a great service. Do you guys have fab.com here? Yeah. But because I was an early adopter, they sent me this awesome little card in the mail, and I all of a sudden get to unlock new levels of VIP deals, that sort of thing. Triggers. So opportunistic triggers are what's going on in the world that you can attach yourself to. So memes, ideas, current events, everyday triggers. So what are those little environmental things that happen on a day-to-day life that you can attach your brand to? And here you guys. So whenever it's Friday, do you get a certain song in your head that creates an earworm that starts to really drive you crazy? You guys know what song I'm talking about? Yeah. And then competitive triggers, making a rival's message as a trigger for your own. So here's some examples. Michaela is not impressed. Was a big meme that was going on, and this happened to be the second most shared photo of Obama's next to the 4 more years photo. And yes, serious organizations can participate in memes. Have you ever seen, so the Travelocity branding, brilliant, because now every time I see a garden gnome, I think, Travelocity. They've tied themselves to an everyday object that you see. Kit Kat's another great example. When every time you take a break, give yourself a Kit Kat, give yourself a break. I don't know if you have the same branding or the advertising that happened over here, but things that you can tie to everyday objects. Think about what kind of trigger you could have as a mascot, as a part of your marketing. And then Zappos, so in the US, there's, when you're going into the airport and you have to take off your shoes and stuff, Zappos has targeted certain airports, SFO, in Vegas, LA, New York, LaGuardia, JFK, and all of the bins that you put your shoes into, Zappos has branded the bottom of those. So, of course, you're already taking off your shoes, and you're having going through TSA, and it makes me smile, and I think, wow, this is great placement. And then competitive triggers, this is a really old one as well, but I think one of the best examples of it, when Hertz was #1 for car rentals, Avis used this to their advantage, and they said, we're #2, well, that's just gonna make us try harder to please you. So emotion, this is probably my favorite of the steps. It's the one that I find shares really well in social media for sure. So this breaks down as high arousal emotions. There's a difference between low arousal emotion and a high arousal emotion, which I'll describe in a second. A focus on feelings rather than features. When you're talking about your brand publicly, you don't list off the features, you talk about how it makes people feel. And then the 3 whys, which Kelly earlier talked about in the why finding, so I'll just go into this. So high arousal emotions. There's 2 types of emotions. There's high arousal and there's low arousal. In the high arousal space of emotions, the high arousal emotions basically are the ones that they have studied through the Mortons School of Business, Jonah Berger did, and found that when you're in these states, you're more likely to share, you're more likely to tell other people about something. So awe, excitement, humor, hope, inspiration. But on the negative side, there's also anger, anxiety, and disgust. So you'll see during an election, lots of your friends are sharing all sorts of misinformation because it has raised their anxiety. You'll see lots of this sort of stuff being shared through Facebook and Twitter. I just realized I have 2 Ryan Gosling pictures on here. That says something about me. But, adorable animals, grumpy cats, this picture of the dog with arthritis. It makes me cry, and this dog passed away recently, which made me cry even harder. Proposals, that sort of stuff. So when this stuff is put out there, even if they have nothing to do with anybody, they're really likely to be shared, versus if I go back in the low arousal side of things, when people are just content, what are you going to tweet, what are you going to Facebook about? Yeah, today's okay. Today's fine. When you're relaxed, when you're calm, when you just come out of a massage, when you're in a state of relaxation, you're less likely to reach for your phone and tell the world about it. Same with sadness. Now, there's sad stories that are shared, but they're usually stories that end in some sort of measure of hope, rather than being, when somebody's sad, nobody wants to be Debbie Downer. It's hard to share that, and when they do post that stuff, people get uncomfortable. So those are the sort of low arousal emotions that aren't shared as often. Focus on feelings. Dove does a really great job with this for the Real Beauty campaign. They don't talk about their products. They don't say, oh, this makes your skin super soft. They talk about how women want to feel. And then the 3 whys, Kelly really did go through that with the why finding, just asking the question. So the first one, people do this. Well, why is that important? Well, because they want to achieve this. Why is that important? Because they're driven by this deep desire. Okay, so we're starting to get to the soul, the heart and soul of what is actually that core emotion that's driving people around sharing and being attracted to a product. Public. So how can you make your product more visible? Then there's the psychology of imitation, which, when you see a long lineup somewhere, you think the food must be good, right? Behavioral residue. So what are the physical traces that you could build into your product that have other people seeing that somebody's using it? So visibility, the classic example is, of course, the white headphones for the iPod. When it first came out, you could see who had the iPod, and the more you saw it, the more that brand was reinforced into your brain. Psychology of imitation, you guys know the term mimetic desire. So we desire objects because someone else desires them. So when we didn't care about that, we didn't care about H&M, and then we walk by, we see this huge long lineup, and we think, what's going on there? Is there a sale? What's going on? I need to know. I need to get in there. I should check out H&M. Same thing with like the restaurant example. If you go into, I don't know if you do this, but I sometimes pick a restaurant by like the amount of people that are sitting in it at any given time. That must be good. So if you have a restaurant, just pay people to sit in your restaurant all day long. Behavioral residue, and this is a lot of the share tools that are built into products. So as soon as I take an action, and this is a lot to do with like the growth hacking stuff, I have an action, I'm encouraged then to post it to my social network so everybody knows that I'm doing that. I'm going to this event, I'm Spotify or RDO, I'm listening to these songs. Pinterest, I just pin these pins, like all these different ways in which you can create behavioral residue off of that you can build into your product. Practical value, availability, there's ways to restrict availability so that people act now. And then useful information, that is short lists focused, creating short lists focused on giving people really useful information. And you see also like on YouTube a lot of videos that go around that are very useful, like practical information. I don't think I do my hair or makeup anymore without opening up YouTube and looking up the hairstyle that I want to create or the makeup effect that I want to create. An example of the availability is the Priceline Negotiator. And then useful information, we see infographics everywhere now. They're one of the most annoying yet shareable things in the universe. In fact, they often carry really bad information, but people share the hell out of them because they're so useful. They take big data, big information, and digest it into something really, really useful and sometimes harmful. Stories, the last of the steps. What's your Trojan horse? Stories carry something. They carry a lesson or an information message. So what story can you wrap around your product to make your product the center of the message and have people accept that Trojan horse into their attention sphere and then pay attention to your product in that way. And then creating stories for customers. What are those little touches, like what Darren did for me in the chauffeur service? What are those little touches that people are going to want to talk about? So Chipotle. You guys don't have Chipotle in the UK. Do you have Chipotle? Did you guys see the Back to the Start ad that they did where they talk about sustainable farming? It's like this great little stop motion ad. Willie Nelson is singing Back to the Start, and Chipotle just shows up really lightly at the end of this ad. It really is focused on getting back to sustainable farming and that sort of thing. Well, they just came out with a game for for the mobile phone, I think it's for iPhone and Android, about a scarecrow that realizes that what we're feeding people is not real food, and you play the scarecrow, and the scarecrow has to disrupt this market and teach people again that eating local, healthy food, real food is the way to go. And they tell they don't say eat Chipotle burritos. The scarecrow is making burritos. They don't say any of that stuff. In fact, Chipotle as a brand hardly ever shows up in any of their ads, but they've created a strong brand within it. So they've coupled the Trojan horse of this story that we can all relate to with their brand being at the center of it. And then gives customers a story to share. So this guy, Peter Shankman, who's quite well followed on Twitter, had made a joke on Twitter and said, "Hey, Mortons, which is a steakhouse, can you meet me at Newark Airport with a porterhouse when I land in 2 hours? Okay, thanks." Smile. Never thought it would happen. And then, oh my God, Mortons showed up with a porterhouse. With a guy in like a black tie and everything. Now this was responded to. I was only able to capture a certain amount to put on the slide, but there were tons and tons of tweets. It was then featured, of course, in Mashable, because Mashable talks about all this stuff, and but featured across and different ad magazines about how this one gesture. This one little gesture by a local steakhouse who obviously follows and listens to their tweets, which a lot of companies don't do. They set something up and push out a lot of messages, but this is the lesson in following, and then create this, go above and beyond. You don't have to do this for every customer, of course. Now Mortons is going to get a lot of, "Hey Mortons, can you meet me too at Newark and bring me a steak?" But you just have to do it every now and then. Zappos does this with the free delivery service. Andy was talking about Zappos earlier. The free delivery that they surprise people with. They don't promise free delivery, but every now and then you get an email saying your delivery is free now. So it's just these little touches, these little things, and it's focusing on those. That's important. So how can you incorporate any one of these or all 6 of these into your product? How can you incorporate ways that people, the ways that people feel special as being part of it? Triggers of every day, the high arousal emotional states, make something more public, show more practical value in what you do, and then also create a story around instead of talking about the product and the features. So in conclusion, and I think I'm just like right on time, which is great because I know I'm between you and drinks, free drinks, so I'm well aware of that. I have like many strikes against me. I'm a marketer and I'm stopping you from your open bar. In conclusion, number 1, marketing, product, and world events, whatever's happening, the external factors are not isolated. Their functions cross over and work in tandem to make for a successful product. Number 2, there are oodles of businesses making products and services. Tons. In order to break through that noise, you need to give people a reason to choose you, but you also need to get in front of people to know that you're a choice at all. And number 3, the secret to shareable, remarkable products and service and content can be codified. There's not a formula, but it can be codified if you tap into these ideas. All of these triggers have actual data and science behind them that have been studied by Berger and his team. I don't know if you guys remember the New York Times article, about the New York Times sharing, called "You're Going to Share This Article," I think it was. It was actually Jonah Berger behind that who took a look at, I think, 2 years of data of what people share on New York Times and peeled back layers and layers and found all of those triggers behind why people share New York Times articles and then continue to study to create contagious. Pardon me, and that's it. Have some drinks.